Chairman, you may present the reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first report is in respect of a bill for an act to amend the Association of the National Accountants of Nigeria Act number 76 of 1993, Cap A26F LFN 2004, and for other matters related. Mr. President, the Senate, in a sitting on Wednesday, 15th day of February 2022, read the second time a bill for an act to amend the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria Act and was subsequently referred to our committee. The committee, after due consideration, conducted the expected public hearing 1999 as amended, no contrary to any extant laws, public interest, or mandate of any other association or organization. Hence, the bill is within the confines of our extant laws in Nigeria and therefore legal in all its ramifications. That the proposed amendment to Section 1, Subsection 1 of the Principal Act is the insertion of a new subparagraph B after the existence of paragraph A to make provisions for ANAN to collaborate with other entities capable of increasing the frontier of knowledge in account.
Leader, please extend time.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, according to our Order 8, subsection 3, I move that we extend time beyond 2 o'clock. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we suspend our order to enable us sit beyond 2 p.m. say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may continue, Chairman.
Observation number 3, Mr. Chairman, the proposed amendment to Section 2 of the Principal Act is the submission of the professional designation of the registered members of ANAN from Nigeria National Accountant with the Chartered National Accountant, CNA, and fellow Chartered National Accountant, FCNA, respectively. This is to reflect the professional status of the association as a duly chartered institution by the National Assembly pursuant to the Act of the National Assembly number 76 of 1993, Cap A26 LFN 2004. Observation number 4, Mr. President, the object of the amendment of Section 20 of the Principal Act is to introduce the accounting technician scheme for the middle level. For the middle level management. This is a desirable measure that codifies the formal training of the middle level accountant technicians that in high demand in Nigeria. Number 5, Mr. President, the proposed amendment to Section 3 of the Principal Act is to increase the composition of the ANAN Governing Council from its present 18 members as contained in the Principal Act to 21 members. Observation number 6, Mr. President, whereas the proposed amendment to Section 6 of the Principal Act was to change the designation of the Registrar of ANAN to Chief Executive Officer, CEO, of Annan to reflect the current trend in the international best practices. Our recommendation, Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Establishment and Public Service, after due consideration of the provisions of the bill, hereby recommends that the Senate do consider and pass the Association of the National Accountants of Nigeria Act number 76 of 1993, Cap A26 LFN 2004, Amendment Bill, and for other matters connected thereto. I so submit, Mr. President.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate. Committee order. Oh, I told you that was the last one. Was that the first one or the last one? Okay, do the others. Do the others.
Mr. President, the second is in respect of a bill for an act to establish the National Environmental Research and Training Institute for the development of environmental policies, training and research, and for other matters connected thereto. Mr. President, the Senate at its sitting on Wednesday, 17th February 2021, considered the second reading of the bill for an act to establish the National Environmental Research and Training Institute for the development of environmental policies, training and research, and for other matters connected thereto. The bill was referred to our committee for further legislative action. After due consideration, Mr. President, the summary of our findings that clause 2, subsection 3, and 2, subsection 3C of the bill be amended to include minimum working experience and academic qualifications as a prerequisite condition for appointment into the offices of the chairman of the board and directors general of the institute. 2, membership of the governing board provided under clause 2, subsection 3 of the bill should be slightly expanded to include the 3 additional members to represent 1, South-South/Southeast, Northwest/Northeast, North Central/Southwest. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we are constrained to adopt the conventional 6 geopolitical zones because the membership structure of the board provided under the bill is large. Hence, we restricted ourselves to 3 sub-regional zones as suggested above. 3, with respect to the issue of direct conflict between the functions of the proposed institute under clause 4 of the bill with other extant institutions of environment, the committee was of the firm belief that the fundamental purpose of the proposed institute is merely to provide training and research into the various environmental challenges and issues in Nigeria and to profile lasting solutions using modern high-tech and scientific methods. Thus, unlike NESRA and others, the proposed institution is neither an enforcement nor a regulatory body of the country's extant environmental laws, but rather a training and research institution. Therefore, Mr. President, the committee resolved that there is no iota of conflict between the functions of the proposed institutions under the bill and the functions presently performed by the existing environmental institutions in the country. Furthermore, the headings of clauses 2, 5, 7, and 8 were rephrased and numbered accordingly to reflect the amendments made thereto, as well as to meet the minimum legislative drafting standard. All the remaining clauses were retained, including schedule and explanatory memorandum. Consequently, Mr. President, the Committee on Establishment and Public Service hereby recommends that the Senate do consider and pass the bill for an act to establish the National Environmental Research and Training Institute for the development of environmental policies, training and research, and for other matters connected thereto. I so submit.
Any comments? Oh.
The third report, Mr. President, is in respect of the Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill and for other matters related thereto. Mr. President, this distinguished Senate, at its sitting on Wednesday, the 6th day of October 2021, read the second time the Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill and for other matters related thereto, and referred same to the Committee for further legislative action. Consequently, Mr. President, after conducting the usual public hearing, the committee wished to observe as follows. Microbiology as a profession and discipline transcend across every facet of our economy, be it health, education, agriculture, manufacturing, environment, and energy. Hence, it has been adjudged as one of the strong enablers of our economy if effectively and efficiently harnessed and galvanized along its value chain to the end product using local resources. Therefore, Mr. President, the Microbiology Council of Nigeria, which this bill seeks to establish, will harness and galvanize our vast indigenous microbial resources into harmonious whole for sustainable economic growth and development. Furthermore, the establishment of Microbiology Council of Nigeria through this bill shall provide the requisite institutional framework for effective coordination, standardization, and regulation of all aspects of microbiology in Nigeria into economic growth and development. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, please note that the Council has been in existence and functioning for the past few years with its registered members across the country. Therefore, this bill is mainly meant to confer the legal status on the Council in order to legitimize its programs and to enable it to be registered and recognized by the International Microbiology Council and other related international organizations. To this end, Mr. President, our committee recommends that the Senate consider and pass the Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill and for other matters related thereto. I so submit, Mr. President.
I guess that's the third one, the last one. Any comments? Okay, committee of the whole. He led them.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resolve into the Committee of the Whole to consider the three reports.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into committee of the whole to consider the three reports, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, ANAN. Those in favor that clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, clause 5, clause 6, clause 7, clause 8, clause 9, clause 10, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 11 is on page 19, creation of new section. Establishment. Those who are at clause 11, clause 12, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the clause, the interpretation, on page 23, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at clause, long title, on page 1, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The second report, National Environmental Research and Training. Those who were at clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, clause 5, functions of the board on page 4, clause 6, powers of the board, clause 7, clause 8, clause 9, pensions, and clause 10, funds of the institute, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 11 is on page 8. Those who are at clause 11, clause 12, clause 13, clause 14, clause 15, clause 16, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the interpretation, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the short title on page 11, stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the schedule, stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the explanatory memorandum on page 14, stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the long title on page 1, stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Last report, Microbiology Council of Nigeria. Those are clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, clause 5, clause 6, clause 7, clause 8, clause 9, and clause 10. Stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 11 is on page 10. Those who are at clause 11, clause 12, clause 13, clause 14, clause 15, clause 16, penalties for armed professional conduct, clause 17, clause 18, clause 19, clause 20, and clause 21, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the interpretation, stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the short title, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the schedules 1 and 2 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
I move that the chair revert to plenary and report progress. So moved.
Minority Leader.
I request the Senate to provide by plenary to report. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate reverse to plenary for the chair to report progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate and the Committee of the Whole consider the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, NN, Act number 76 of 1993, Cap A26, LFN Amendment Bill 2022, and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clause 1 to 13 as recommended, interpretation as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. Thank you. The Senate and the Committee of the Whole also considered the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the National Environmental Research and Training Institute Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clause 1 to 16 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedule as recommended, explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. Thank you very much. The Senate and the Committee of the Whole also considered the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clause 1 to 21 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedule as recommended, explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the three bills be now read the third time.
Minority Leader.
The bill should be read for the third time, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that these three bills be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria Act 1993 and for other related matters 2022, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the National Environmental Research and Training Institute for the development of environmental policies, training, and research, and for other matters connected thereto, 2022, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Microbiology Council of Nigeria to provide for the control of its membership and to promote and foster the practice of microbiology in the Federation and for other matters connected therewith, 2022, third reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to amend the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria Act 1993 and for other related matters 2022, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. A bill for an act to establish the National Environmental Research and Training Institute for the development of environmental policies, training and research, and for other matters connected thereto, 2022, third reading taken, and this bill is also passed. A bill for an act to establish the Microbiology Council of Nigeria to provide for the control of its membership and to promote and foster the practice of microbiology in the Federation and for other matters connected therewith, 2022, third reading taken, and the bill is also passed. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
The eighth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Saswan Gabriel and Senator Abdullahi Yahya Abubakar on the need for the Senate intervention in the ongoing bid to concession the Zingero hydroelectric power plant in Niger State. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Saswan Gabriel to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Yahya Abdullahi.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, Gabriel Tosua Suswam, and my humble self. The Senate knows that the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant, located in Zungeru, Niger State, is a 700 megawatt capacity electricity generating plant, a contract for which was originally awarded sometime in 2013 in the sum of $1.3 billion. It is considered the second largest hydroelectric plant in Nigeria after the Kaenji Hydro Power Station, also in Niger State. The Senate notes also that apart from the huge loan secured by the federal government from the Export-Import Bank of China to fund the construction of the Zungeru hydropower plant, the National Assembly has, since the commencement of the construction work on the plant, approved billions of naira annually through its budgetary appropriation towards the completion of the plant. Over 43 billion was allocated to the Zungeru power plant under the 2022 Appropriation Act, and another 76.5 billion naira is being proposed for by the executive for the 2023 budget. The Senate observes that the Zungeru hydropower plant was expected to have been completed within 60 months from the date of execution of the contract in 2013, but several factors have threatened the speedy completion of the project. The Senate observes further that the Zungeru hydropower plant is expected upon completion to inject about 2.64 kilowatts per hour annually to the national grid, apart from other benefits such as water supply schemes, dry season farming and irrigation, flood control, aquatourism opportunities, and other economic activities that would emerge within and around the immediate communities where the project is located. The Senate is aware that the National Council on Privatization and its Secretariat, the Bureau for Public Enterprises, BPE, in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Power, had, in compliance with the provisions of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission Act, invited interested investors to participate in a two-stage process that would lead to the selection of a concessionaire that would operate, maintain, and manage the Zungeru hydropower plant for a minimum of 30 years. Senate is aware also that the invitation for submission of request of qualification was published in the Business Day newspapers of Thursday, 27th October 2022, and several mediums, including a roadshow, to further create awareness of the exercise. Senate notes that while it is within the statutory powers of National Council of Privatization and its Secretariat, the BPE, to implement and superintend over the privatization of the federal government assets, the strategic importance of Zungeru hydropower plant in ameliorating Nigeria's current power challenges calls for the immediate intervention of the Senate in the exercise of its constitutional responsibility to ascertain the implication of the proposed concession on government treasury and the power sector recovery program in particular. Senate notes also that the Senate's intervention at this point is further underscored by the need to ensure accountability for the huge annual budgetary allocations made to the project over the years. The issue of managing unsettled external loans tied to the project, the fate of unsettled host communities where the project is sited, and the need to generally establish whether the proposed concession of the plant is an exercise that will ensure that the government gets deserved value for funds expended in this project, as well as ensure that community-related conflicts do not arise after the takeover by prospective consignees. Senate recalls that in the past, the federal government has, through the National Council of Privatization and its secretariat, the BPE, implemented an ambitious program for the privatization of government-owned power assets. But several years since the completion of the privatization exercise in 2013, the performance of private new owners still remains a subject of controversy and recrimination in public circles. Hence the need for the government to be very, very wary and take precautions in the proposed concession of the Zungeru hydropower plant. Accordingly, Senate resolves to 1. Mandate the Committee on Power to investigate the circumstances and conditions under which the 700 megawatt Zungeru hydropower electric plant is being concessioned, particularly as it relates to the utilization of annual budgetary allocations made to the project, completion level of the project, the management of external loans from the Chinese Export-Import Bank, which are tied to the project, the fate of unsettled host communities where the project is sited, the adequacy or otherwise of selection criteria for the concessionaire, and to generally establish whether the proposed concession of the Zungeru hydropower plant is an exercise that would ensure that government gets the deserved value for funds expended on this project and report back to the Senate within 2 weeks. 2. Urge the National Council on Privatization and the Secretariat, the Bureau for Public Enterprises, and other MDAs concerned to suspend indefinitely the proposed concession of the 700 megawatts Zungeru hydroelectric power plant in Niger State, pending the conclusion of investigation by the Senate Committee on Power and the consequent adoption of the decision. So submit, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator,
This contract was awarded at the cost of $1.3 billion, with Nigerian government going to partake to the tune of about 25%. As of today, the government of Nigeria has expended close to about 147 billion naira in that project. And as I'm talking, that project is within my senatorial district. It has not yet been completed. They've just been commissioning the first turbine. Looking at the amount that has been spent in that project, and looking at the fact that even if that project is completed 100% today, we do not have the capacity to be able to take all the power that it will generate into the national grid. I doubt if we'll be able to take up to 50%. Now you're talking about concessioning it when it is not yet commissioned, because when it is commissioned, it is assumed to have been completed. So, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this motion have captured almost everything that we should consider. One, there is security implication. The whole of Shiroro local government where that project is located, because that project is not in Zungeru. Zungeru is Ushishi local government. But that project is located in Shiroro local government. So even the nomenclature of that project is wrong. Zungeru is supposed to have another hydro, which already they have done the impact assessments. The security situation in Shiroro local government, I have been here before several times talking about how even Boko Haram have set up camps in Shiroro local government. As I'm talking today, I don't know if the Chinese people that were kidnapped at that construction site have been released. So, is it going to be like the Jos Disco, where force majeure was later declared? If we do it that way, that means we are just serving the interest of a few. Why do we have to concession that plant at this moment? When we know, even the BPE knows that all is not set in that place. If you look at the liquidity challenges that Nigeria is going to face too, who is going to be doing the repayments? Once that plant starts running, we're supposed to start the repayment. Who is going to do the repayment? How do they generate the money? They will fall back to the federal government. And why will the federal government have the money to pay for that? If you go further, today we are talking about subsidy in petroleum. Why must we then also do something that will come and bring the issue of subsidizing generation when we have not made the adequate arrangement to take care of all these things? Mr. President, I believe even the huge liabilities they have left now for not compensating my constituents, they have not been compensated. They cannot even farm, because whenever they release the water, there is always flood there. We are not looking at how we take care of all these things. We are rushing to concession it. The ones who have concession, what have we achieved? Almost 16 years now. So I stand to second this motion, and we should call BPE to order. They should suspend it until when everything is clear. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sadiq Umar Suleiman.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North and who all are. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, for me, the issues that makes me to be interested in this motion are three. One, there's a loan tied to this project. Two, we've been appropriating so much money into this project already. The communities have serious concerns about this project. And here we are, we already rich in experiences of concessioning in the last 2 decades. The success has been very, very poor. It's not been successful. Mr. President, I think that as representative of the people, we owe Nigerian people generally.
Photographer, this your flash. Please don't be flashing this thing inside the. Please. Don't use flash.
We have to protect the wealth of Nigerians. And nobody will do that except the parliament. And the best opportunity we have is to question decisions that have been taken without proper thinking being put into place. And that is our job, and I therefore support this motion that we look at these issues strategically, carefully, and technically, and take a decision before we allow this to be concession. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Barrow Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, the whole exercise is suspicious. It's highly suspicious. If not, how could someone explain a project that billions of dollars, not naira, is being spent in making sure that it's fully done and completed? Now, we have not finished the project. The project has not been completed. One is rushing to go a concession. Why the rush? Why the rush? Anybody, even an ordinary man on the streets, if he hears the story about this concession exercise, certainly he will be suspicious. And besides, sir, some concession have been done on our power asset before now. What is the result? The whole exercise is not really going the way we want those things to be run, as a nation. And besides that, sir, our major problem that has impeded our zeal to get industrialized as a nation, to get a real sector up and doing, the major problem is that of power. And here we are. The government, in its wisdom, decided to bring forward this project. We've got a loan, and government spending year in, year out, and some people are out there trying to cause confusion. Allow the project to be completed. Because if you concession it now, anybody who is successful in the exercise, probably after some time, he'll come with reasons, and then the project will get truncated. Mr. President, please, let these people understand our need as a nation. Let them help this country. Allow this project to be completed before taking any action to do with concession. Mr. President, I so submit.
Senator Yusuf Abubakar Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Yusuf Abubakar Yusuf. I represent Taraba Central. First of all, I support this motion, and also to draw the attention of the Senate that Zungeru hydropower project is not within the project under the mandate of BPE to either privatize, either through commercialization, partial commercialization, or full privatization. So, that's point number one. Number two, the project is financed by 15%, Chinese Exim Bank, and also, 85% Nigeria. So if you are privatizing, you are privatizing whose project? Now, number three, if they want to concession this, you can't concession project that is incomplete. And just like my previous colleagues, what they have said, we do not see any need to rush to concession this project in the light of what I have said. So if you can concession Zungeru, there's no reason why we cannot concession Mambila hydroelectricity power, because it is also a project in the pipeline. This one is an uncompleted project. So, Mr. Chairman, I support this motion. In the light of what I have said and what my colleagues have said, I think, Senate should intervene. Of this motion. Thank you very much.
Before we go to the prayers, let me also remark here. The power sector apparently in Nigeria appears to be the one that the BPE will always rush to privatize or concession. And practically, it's this sector that has failed more than any other sector after privatization. Today, we pay Aku Gas almost 10 billion every month, naira, for nothing. And there are about 2 more payments that cannot be justified that are done every month. We privatize the GENCOs, the DISCOs, and yet we have been going back to give them government money. 1.2 trillion or so. So there's no need for anyone to try to rush into concessioning Zungeru. Recently, most of the discos were acquired by banks or something like that. They took money they couldn't pay back, and the banks took them over. So BPE is better advised. We spend a lot of money on providing infrastructure one way or the other, and then we give them away for peanuts. One example, when in 2011 we investigated privatization of public enterprises between 1999 and 2011, the Aluminum Smelter Company of Nigeria in Akwa Ibom, the federal government spent $3.5 billion to establish that. And we sold it. No. We sold it for 150 million. And even then, only 100 million was paid from $3.5 billion to $100 million. How can anyone justify this kind of thing? So it's better for the executive to listen to us, because we are not going to support this concessioning. And even if someone tries to, we will just reverse it. We are not going to accept this. The public loses too much. We are making ourselves poorer every day. Why should anyone rush to sell? How happy are we paying Akugas 10 billion naira every month? We signed that agreement knowing fully well that we can't use the gas. We were expected to have 7 turbines, only one works. And you can't opt out of that agreement with Aquagas. The penalty is over $1 billion. And that was something that people signed on behalf of government. So this one, the Senate, from the submissions, is totally against it. Let's suspend whatever we are doing. BPE should stop. And we, of course, the National Council on Privatization is the one that will give BPE to go ahead, but I'm sure NCP will not give that kind of approval. And if there is, we're advising that everything should be suspended. We'll go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Mandate the Committee on Power to investigate the circumstances and conditions under which the 700 megawatts Zungeru hydroelectric power plant is being concessioned, particularly as it relates to the utilization of annual budgetary allocations to the project, completion level of the project, the management of external loans from the Chinese Exim Bank, which are tied to the project, the fate of unsettled host communities where the project is sited, the adequacy or otherwise of selection criteria for the concessionaire, and to generally establish whether the proposed concession of the ZHPP is an exercise that will ensure that government get the deserved value for funds expended on this project, and to report back to the Senate within 2 weeks. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. And prayer 2. Urge the National Council on Privatization and its Secretariat, the Bureau of Public Enterprises, and other MDS concerned to suspend indefinitely the proposed concession of the 700 megawatts Zungeru hydroelectric power plant in Niger State, pending the conclusion of investigation by the Senate Committee on Power and the subsequent adoption of the decision of the Senate based on the findings and recommendations of the committee. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. Thank you very much.
The ninth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Ibezium Frank Chukuma on urging the federal government to promote the development of classrooms to modern libraries and a reversed reading culture in Nigeria. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Ibezium Frank Chukuma to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Frank Chukuma Ibezium.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Chukuma Frank Ibezium, I represent Imo North Senatorial District.
I rise to move to motion urging the federal government to promote the development of classroom/modern libraries and a robust reading culture in Nigeria. The Senate notes with concern the recent decline in reading culture amongst most Nigerians, which is even more visible in schools, beginning from formative and basic years of primary school through secondary school and tertiary institutions. The Senate knows further that a reading culture is knowledge-based and results to an enlightened and developed society. That is not the case anymore in view of the poor reading culture among students of primary and secondary schools in Nigeria, which has reached an alarming rate and needs to be addressed urgently before it worsens. Aware that the poor reading culture has arisen due to a flawed education system, where emphasis is on memorizing tests and not practical training, lack of well-equipped library facilities with state-of-the-art information and communication technology gadgets, and ridiculously low patronage by the students, even where libraries are available and accessible. The Senate recalls that in the 80s and 90s, public libraries were fully equipped and accessible to the general public. The reading culture amongst Nigerians was rated high even among school-age children. In schools, there were reading clubs and students read together and borrowed books to read at home. The Senate observes that Nigeria has one of the highest number of school-age children who are not enrolled in schools, and some have dropped out of school in a statistics of about 20 million school-age children worldwide, as reported in the 2017 International Journal of Technology and Inclusive Education. Senate further observes that in a recent UNICEF report, it was stated that over 10 million children in Nigeria are out of school, which is the highest rate in the world, and that 1 in 5 out-of-school children in the world is a Nigerian. Being out of school may most likely translate to inability to read fluently, and it goes without saying that such out-of-school children cannot have a reading culture. Concerned that today, quite a number of secondary school students in Nigeria cannot read simple sentences nor speak grammatically correct English language, which is Nigeria's lingua franca. There are some students in the universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education who cannot read fluently. The Senate knows that a society without a good reading culture cannot boast of knowledgeable citizens that can contribute meaningfully to national development. So they're further concerned that a society with a poor reading culture such as Nigeria is bound to have leadership crisis because of death of knowledgeable leaders. And these school-age students in focus are the future leaders of our great country, Nigeria. Lack of a good reading culture also affects the ability to tolerate one another, as one who does not read has no knowledge of happenings in other diversified and technologically advanced countries. The Senate observes that at individual level, poor reading culture impedes personal development and success in life. Lack of reading has affected a good number of Nigerians. Most adults lack the capacity to read and understand simple instructions and warning signs, such as the use of the pedestrian bridge or do not cross major highways on foot. Not surprisingly, lack of reading culture is also a reason why some students are not performing well academically in school today, as they fail to read and understand instructions. Disturbed that the National Library Project is struggling with no hope in sight, the Senate in 2019 has frowned at the fact that 57 years after independence and since 2006, when the project to build a befitting National Library began, it is yet challenged by dilapidated facilities, outdated books, and no state-of-the-art information communication tools. Also, that the National Library of Nigeria is not expanding its branches across country, neither is it rehabilitating existing ones to encourage Nigerians to cultivate a good reading culture. The Senate further disturbed that the absence of modern library facilities in major cities and towns across the country is affecting negatively the reading culture of Nigeria. In the FCT, The public library, even though it's open to the general public, has restrictive closing hours, which are not favorable to most Nigerians who can only visit the library after the usual working hours to read. In addition, the library does not permit the borrowing out of books. The Senate concerned that even private library facilities are not readily available and accessible to students and the generality of Nigerians. Only few of the private libraries are functional, like the Bamanga Library, located in Wuse 2 district of the FCT. These private libraries are meant to act as supplementary libraries supporting the public libraries. The private libraries have space constraints to accommodate a large number of Nigerians who desire to develop a reading culture. So they're convinced that there is an urgent need for the Senate to act speedily and call for collaboration between relevant stakeholders in Nigeria's education sector who can assist in making the issues of cultivating a reading culture a national issue and a front burner with a view to addressing the challenges that limit access to library facilities and to encourage reading culture among Nigerians. And Senate further convinced that the federal government can work in synergy with the private library owners by granting tax reliefs, which will encourage them to offer ease of access to their library facilities and ultimately encourage students and the general public to take up reading and develop a reading culture. Accordingly, results: 1, mandate the Committee on Education, Basic and Secondary, to interact with the Minister of Education with a view to receiving briefing from the Minister on what has been achieved so far regarding provisions of library facilities in schools across Nigeria and to report back within 2 weeks. 2, to mandate the Committee on FCT to interact with the Minister with a view to ascertaining the state of public library facilities across the FCT and arriving at a practical solution to encourage the culture of reading among Nigerian students and the general public. 3, to direct UBEC and other relevant MDAs to implement the I Am the Future of Nigeria classroom libraries in primary 1 and 2 classrooms to improve reading culture and enhance foundational education. 4, to urge the general public to take seriously the issue of reading and imbibe a good reading culture, which has the potential to assist the government's efforts on integration and religious tolerance. 5, urge the relevant education stakeholders to rise to the occasion and create awareness through campaigns on the necessity of cultivating a good reading culture. And lastly, urge the Federal Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ministries of Education across the various states of the Federation, to set aside a day as an annual reading day to draw attention to the importance of a viral reading culture to national development. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you, sir.
Now, Senator Mamis and Musa.
Mr. President, I stand to support the motion wholeheartedly because today the culture of going into the libraries in schools have faded completely. Those days when we were in school, even in the school timetable, you will see there's a time that you have to go to the library. It's compulsory. But today, the libraries are not even there in schools. While I was in primary school, we used to have a library. Secondary school, there was library. But now, even most tertiary institutions today, you hardly can find a befitting library. So I think there is no better time to bring in this motion. Like now, the 10 million he mentioned just yesterday, the former president I heard him saying at the function on education that almost 20 million out of school children are in Nigeria, and it's another bombshell. So this is one of the areas that we'll be able to efficiently bring back the lost glories that we do have in the education sector. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Emmanuel Boacha.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to add my voice to this motion, which I consider very noble at this particular time of our history. Mr. President, the fall in education in our nation is largely attributed to this particular aspect of our student upbringing. The reading culture has collapsed completely. And it's often said, particularly in Africa south of Sahara, that if you want to hide something to somebody from this region, put it in a book. He is too busy to read. And this has contributed to our mad rush for acquisition of certificate. To us, if you have a certificate, you have a PhD holder, you're an important person in the society. And there is no commensurate manifestation of this knowledge of this certificate acquisition. I think we need to encourage our students to read extensively, to be able to research vastly, that they will be able to match the certificate they hold with the knowledge of the environment. I want to also be associated with all the following prayers and encourage us, Mr. President, to support same. Thank you very much.
We'll go to the prayers. Prayer 1, mandate the committees on education, basic and secondary. Then there should be no S. Mandate the Committee on Education, Basic and Secondary to interact with the Minister of Education with a view to receiving briefing from the Minister on what has been achieved so far regarding provision of library facilities in schools across Nigeria and to report by within 2 weeks. Amendment, Senator Yusuf.
Now, I think the committees, we should include the tertiary. So we should just say, mandate the committees on education, basic, secondary, and tertiary in that bracket. So that we'll have the committees to work on it. No, there's basic. Yes, well, even the libraries in the tertiary institutions, they are also, are also affected. So that's why I thought, we should have basic, secondary, and then tertiary. So that we should have committees on education for all the three.
I need someone to support the amendment he's bringing. Yeah, Senator Barrow.
Barrow Jibrin Kano North. I stand to second the amendment moved by Senator Yusuf.
So those in favor of the motion that prayer 1, in favor of prayer 1 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. Prayer 2, mandate the Committee on Federal Capital Territory to interact with the Minister with a view to ascertaining the state of public library facilities across the Federal Capital Territory and arriving at a practicable solution to encourage the culture of reading among Nigerian students and the general public. I don't think there is any need. Yes, the first prayer covers, because actually this is supposed to go to National Council on Education. That's where everybody is, including the minister and all the commissioners and FCT. Yes, so it's not FCT. So maybe we cancel prayer 2. Prayer education, which has the potential to assist government effort. So who will urge the general public? Who will urge the general public? Is it government or Senate? Okay, amendment.
The amendment should read, the National Orientation Agency be urged to firm up sensitization.
No, but we are not there yet. We are in prayer 3.
Agency has of public enlightenment.
Prayer 3 as amended, say aye. To sanitization, if you like, if you agree, we remove that. You remove it yourself. If you don't agree, we put it to vote. And you know where it will end.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm actually thinking that it would be good to amend it. Instead of maybe just say another relevant agencies to other relevant stakeholders will capture? Okay. Prayer 6 will there. Let's expunge prayer 5 then. Yes, Mr. President, sir.
Because our 4 has been knocked out. So prayer 4 urge the Federal Ministry of Education in collaboration with the Ministers of Education across the various states of the Federation to set aside a day as an annual reading day to draw attention to the importance of a virile reading culture to national development. I think instead of doing that, you can say National Council on Education. Instead of mentioning Federal Ministry of Education, states, and FCT, because even FCT is missing. So if you say National Council on Education, that even other stakeholders who may not be governmental may be there. So maybe someone proposes the amendment. Senator Barrow.
I move that prayer 6 be amended to read, okay, yeah, 6. Be amended that the National Council for Education to set aside a day as an annual reading day to draw the attention to the importance of viral reading culture to national development. I so move.
I need a seconder for the amendment. Yusuf.
Mr. President, I rise to second the amendment proposed by Senator Barrow Jibril.
Those in favor of prayer 4 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Is there any other prayer? Leader of the Senate is stand down the remaining items. The Constitutional Review Committee has a meeting at 3. Right? DSP? 3.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move to stand down the remaining items on the order paper to another legislative day.
To another legislative.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Adjournment.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, having concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, huh? Okay. Oh, sorry, well. No, not that one. Because we extended it, right? Therefore, it's for him.
2022 at 10, and I believe that Friday is there. But after this week, the Committee on Appropriations will be presenting its report. When is the date, Chairman? Huh? So our committees, please take the advantage of the available days from tomorrow. Thank you.